I hurriedly drove home right after the company party ended, unaware that my phone was still on my desk. When I returned to get it, I accidentally discovered my husband's car rocking in the parking garage. I walked closer and was even more shocked to see him with my boss. They jolted when they looked up and saw me, thinking I would scream. But no. I made a phone call and saved the surprise for them at the board meeting the next morning. I left the opening party at the Bunny Furniture Showroom on Rodeo Drive at exactly 11:26 p.m. The music and golden lights still clinging to my shoulders like the night's commotion refused to die down. I planned to drive straight home until halfway there, at a red light. Out of habit, I reached into my pocket and realized I had left my phone on my desk. Annoying, but not the end of the world. I turned back, drove to the office building, and parked in a nearly empty garage. The showroom, post-party, looked nothing like it did during the day, the neon lights reflecting off the glass like an abandoned stage. I picked up my phone from the desk, and as soon as the screen lit up, 15 missed calls from Logan's mother froze me in place, but I decided I'd call her back early tomorrow. When I returned to the parking garage, there was only one car left on that underground level, Logan's gray Lexus LX 570, its windows fogged like someone had just pressed their lips to the glass. Then I heard a faint sound, the car body subtly pulsing with movement. I stepped closer, and time condensed. Through the misty rear window, I clearly saw Savannah Brooks' platinum blonde hair in Logan's lap. I heard the heavy breathing, the squeaking of leather seats, Logan's voice whispering. But I didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't collapse. I opened YouTube, typed in 911 call screaming, and turned the volume to max. The shrieking echoed through the garage, making the Lexus jolt. The window rolled down. Logan's face was pale. Savannah hastily pulled a white blazer over herself, her red heels scattered on the car floor. When Logan called my name, I simply looked at him and gave a faint smile. An explanation. Save it for the divorce lawyer. I took one photo, just silhouettes, no faces, then turned and walked away. Said nothing more. No speeches. No outbursts. Just walked, leaving Logan and Savannah standing in the howling wind of the basement, while my golden goose sneakers echoed steadily across the cold concrete. I left the parking lot, unaware that that moment would open up an entirely different journey, far more complicated than just an affair. I drove up to the Hollywood Hills in silence, my hands still slightly trembling, but my mind clearer than it had been in a long time. The night in Los Angeles fell like a thin curtain, quieter than usual, and all I could hear was the steady hum of the Cadillac engine that had carried me through so many years. I rented an Airbnb overlooking West Hollywood, far enough for Logan not to find me, high enough for me to watch everything change below. It was only after I shut the door behind me that I realized I hadn't shed a single tear. Instead, I opened FaceTime and called Harper Quinn, my cousin in Dallas, a forensic accountant who's rescued more than a few companies from shady hands. The moment Harper saw me, she knew something was wrong. I sent her the photo from the parking lot. She looked at it for a long time, then spoke slowly. It's not this photo. It's Logan. Earlier this year, he sent me a few invoices to check over. The numbers seemed strange, but I had no reason to dig further. Now I do. I stayed silent. Harper stared straight into the screen. Ash, the affair is just the surface. Do you want me to come to LA? I nodded. Harper replied, All right, I'll be there in 6 hours. When the call ended, I stood at the window, looking down at the city. That was the first time I let out a sigh that night. Not because of the betrayal, but because I knew. From the moment Harper said those words, this was no longer about marriage. This was about money, power, and everything Logan had been trying to hide from me for years. When the call with Harper ended, the Airbnb went quiet enough for me to hear the air conditioner hum. Outside the glass door, Los Angeles stretched below the hillside like a lit-up map, and inside, I stood alone in a kitchen lined with quartz so cold, it chilled something inside me. I opened my bag, found my keys, and stared at the phone. Harper was right about one thing. The affair was only the surface. And that feeling, the sense that another door was slowly opening, filled me with both fear and an eerie clarity. I sat down at the small dining table by the window and opened my personal email. Logan had sent me quite a few Harper Media documents over the years, mostly campaign decks, budgets, or advertising rate cards. I scrolled deep, into emails I barely remembered. One caught my eye, forwarded from 3 months ago. Subject, vendor verification, urgent. I clicked it out of habit. The attachment was a pricing sheet from a vendor called Westbridge Solutions, LLC. I didn't recognize the name, but what made me stop wasn't that. It was a small note in the corner. Registered in Delaware. Tax classification, pass-through entity. My heart skipped. A Delaware LLC wasn't unusual in this business, but the way this file was sent, rushed, no explanation, made a chill run down my spine. I couldn't open the file. It said, permission expired. That's what truly unsettled me. Logan never used access-restricted files. Not with me. I set my phone down just as a new message lit up the screen. Logan. Ash, where are you? We need to talk. No exclamation point, no apology, no explanation. Just the same hollow tone he'd used to shut down every minor conflict throughout our marriage. I didn't reply. Another alert came through. A voicemail from Donna. Don't blow this up. Logan says you always misunderstand. You need to stay calm, Ash. I cut it off before she finished. I reopened Harper's note from earlier. If you've got any files Logan ever sent, gather everything. I'll start when I get there. I took a deep breath, opened my laptop, and dragged every suspicious file into a folder labeled Drafts. I didn't fully understand their meaning, but I knew Harper would. Just as I saved the folder, a glint of city light bounced off the photo I'd taken. The silhouette of Logan and Savannah. Just one curve. One truth exposed at the very moment they thought I was powerless. I didn't know why, but looking at that image, I realized something with stunning clarity. I had never really known the man I married. And that Airbnb night, silent, gleaming, frigid, was the first time I truly understood. I hadn't just been betrayed emotionally. I had lived beside someone who might have hidden far more from me than a shaking car in a parking garage. Harper knocked on the Airbnb door just before 7 a.m., eyes still slightly puffy from the red-eye flight, but standing tall, holding her forensic laptop like a soldier gripping her weapon. Even before stepping in, she asked, "Got coffee? Because we're not sleeping for at least 20 hours. I handed her a warm latte, and she placed her laptop on the table, pushing the sliding door wider to let the LA sunlight flood the room. Let's begin, Harper said, pulling me close to the screen. We opened the $38 million campaign payment file from Harper Media. The campaign Logan had always bragged was the biggest deal of the year. Harper scrolled through for a bit, then frowned. Look at this, she said, enlarging a PDF invoice. I didn't see anything strange, but Harper pointed out the font in the bottom right corner. It was slightly off, the letter R, mismatched. This is a broken font. It only exists in template kits online. No legitimate invoice would use this, she said, voice calm and cold. My skin chilled as she opened another file, then another. All the same flaws, the same vendor, no logo, no real address. Just one generic name, Westbridge Solutions LLC, Delaware. All fake, Harper said. We need to check the last 3 years. She opened a consolidated payment sheet from 2023 to 2025, going line by line, figure by figure, character by character. At each entry, she marked, highlighted, annotated. Slowly, the columns began revealing a story I never imagined I'd find in my marriage. $4.8 million, Harper said after a long silence. $4.8 million paid to a supplier that doesn't exist. Every one of them approved by Savannah. I steadied myself against the table. Savannah. The Vogue darling, always in white, gliding like an angel, was the one authorizing every number. Harper continued, "Want to know something interesting? The invoices Logan forwarded me earlier this year, they were only partial. He sent the parts that didn't conflict. The fraudulent halves? He held on to those." She looked at me over her glasses. "Only someone who fabricates invoices and knows what parts to share would do that." "Logan," I whispered before I could even think. Harper opened another folder. This one about the Brooks Legacy Collection, Bunny Furniture's high-end line. She clicked a tax file. On the first page, entity, Brooks Legacy Holdings, LLC, registered in Delaware. But the LLC didn't belong to Bunny Furniture. It belonged to an individual. "Savannah owns this LLC," Harper said, "and guess who helped her transfer the IP rights?" She flipped to page 2. Logan's e-signature glowed like a slap. I recoiled, hand over mouth. Not because of the money, because of the precision, the coordination, the silence between them, so unlike their car entanglement the night before. Outside, desire. Inside, strategy. And they both believed I'd never know. Harper opened a final spreadsheet, her voice quieter. "If the 2026 sale goes through, Savannah will lay off 42% of staff to optimize costs before presenting financials to the Swedish conglomerate." My heart slammed into my ribs. "They didn't just betray each other," I said, voice dry and bitter. "They betrayed the company," Harper nodded. "And you have proof of both betrayals." I looked at the cold glow of the screen. Logan's signature beside Savannah's, two emblems of a joint scheme. The same two who'd tangled in a Lexus last night, had siphoned millions from the company I'd given nearly a decade of my life to. And this was only the first 40 hours. The phone buzzed again, just as I stared at the overlapping e-signatures, Logan and Savannah, like a frozen seal of years-long collusion. This time, it wasn't Logan. It was another voicemail from Donna. Voicemail number 16. I hit play. Her voice rang out, sharp and familiar. "Ash, you're being unreasonable again. Logan says you have emotional issues. You need to apologize. You know how he is. He doesn't like drama." I laughed, quietly enough that Harper heard, bitter enough to surprise even me. Harper glanced up from the screen. What did she say? I placed the phone on the table and exhaled. "The only emotional issue here," I said, "is that damn family." Harper raised an eyebrow. "Let me guess. They're gaslighting you." "Yep," I said, "and they probably have been for years." I opened my call log, 15 missed calls from last night through dawn. I played voicemail number 17. "Ash, pick up. Logan's worried. Don't leave like that. You're stressing him out. You need to think—" I cut her off. Another alert. Voicemail from Donna's secondary number. Same tone, same script. Blame me. Defend Logan. Downplay betrayal. Treat my emotions like a burden. I flipped the phone face down. "Enough," I said, not loud, but with a finality that made Harper pause. I don't need to hear another damn call from that family. I went into settings, flipped silence unknown callers to green. A small move, but my hand felt instantly lighter, as if I'd just severed an invisible rope that had bound me for years. Harper looked at me, half smiling. "You look different than a few days ago." "Different?" I asked. "Yeah," she replied, like someone who knows she's not standing alone anymore, and someone who's about to fight back. I walked toward the window, looking down at a sunlit Los Angeles awakening beneath a soft haze. The fog was thinning, the grid lines of the city pulsing like live wires. No more calls, no more voices trying to shape my feelings to their will. Just me, and the truth, peeling back in layers. I stepped back to the kitchen table, sat beside Harper. "All right, what's next?" Harper turned the laptop toward me, the screen casting blue light on her cheekbones. "Now," she said, "we write an email to the board of directors." "Now, we write the email to the board of directors," Harper said, her voice steady, as if reporting a CEO and CCO for multi-million-dollar fraud was just another item on the morning to-do list. I looked at the clock. 8:40 a.m. If everything went smoothly, I had about 35 minutes to get back to the showroom and appear like a woman starting a perfectly normal Monday. A constructed normalcy to conceal the storm gathering just beneath the surface. I changed clothes, white denim dress, silver cowboy boots, hair tied neatly, minimal makeup. In the mirror, I looked different, not like a betrayed wife, but like someone carrying a secret big enough to shake a company. At 9:17 a.m., I walked into the Bunny Furniture showroom as if everything were fine. Staff greeted me, some smiling brightly. None of them knew that in mere moments, the entire upper management would receive an email that could redirect the company's path in less than 48 hours. I went up to my office, gently closed the door, and opened my laptop. Harper sat beside me on Zoom, still drowsy from her flight, yet sharp as a scalpel. "You ready?" she asked. I nodded and opened a new email tab. My fingers trembled slightly, but my mind was disturbingly clear. The subject line formed slowly, each word like a hammer striking steel. Subject: 48-hour ultimatum, fraud, embezzlement, and planned mass layoff before acquisition. The air in the room felt thicker. I switched to the folder Harper had prepared. A 41-page PDF file including a real versus, fake invoice comparison, evidence of font anomalies, Delaware LLC structure breakdowns, tax files for Brooks Legacy Holdings, a list of the 42% employees targeted for layoffs, and internal emails between Logan and Savannah about the optimization strategy before the acquisition. "Attach everything," Harper said. "Leave no room for denial." I clicked attach and watched each file line up in the draft like the final pieces of a wicked puzzle I had just uncovered. "All right," Harper said softly. "Just add a short note. No stories, just facts." I typed, "I submit this report as a senior employee who directly witnessed misconduct. Attached evidence includes financial fraud, campaign fund embezzlement, and a mass layoff plan designed to manipulate financials ahead of the Swedish acquisition. I request the board to respond within 48 hours. I read it back. No emotion, no rhetoric, just facts, and their weight. Harper looked at me through Zoom. "Click send, and remember, don't breathe for the first 3 seconds." I hit send. A soft whoosh sound followed. Quick, quiet, but it felt like firing an arrow straight through the fortress Logan and Savannah had built for years. 4 minutes later, notifications appeared one after another. Board member, viewed. Board member, viewed. Board member, forwarded. 3 more had read the email. Harper whispered, "They've opened it." I sat up straight, my heart beat deep but steady. A very small moment, but I knew I had just done something the version of me 3 days ago wouldn't have believed herself capable of. And in that quiet space, I realized the old version of my life had ended. Without ceremony, without announcement, just with an email. The afternoon passed in silence, only occasionally interrupted by email alerts from board members, small signals, but enough to tell me something was stirring. That evening, Harper flew back to Dallas on a red-eye, but continued syncing all data through our shared server. I lay down around 10 p.m. but didn't sleep. I was just waiting. At exactly 3:41 a.m., the phone buzzed lightly. Board scheduling bot. Emergency executive session, 4 a.m. PT, mandatory attendance. I sat up, unsurprised. Companies of Bunny Furniture's global scale often held meetings in timeless hours, where time zones were irrelevant. New York, Stockholm, Singapore all present. But 4 a.m. sent a different message. It meant they were serious. Dead serious. I opened my laptop, drew the curtains to block city light from reflecting on my screen. Harper messaged me at 3:52. "Log in anonymously and use your Texas voice." I launched Zoom, changed my display name to Rodeo Rider. Harper's idea. Part American, part every woman, just vague enough to throw off anyone trying to identify me by detail. I activated the voice modifier, choosing Texas mid-range. My voice dropped into a husky, slightly gravelly tone, the kind of voice you'd expect from an oil rig auditor deep in Houston. At 4 a.m. sharp, the Zoom screen lit up. 6 boxes appeared, each a board member from different corners of the globe. Some were in lit-up offices, others in living rooms, one in a Manhattan limousine. The chairperson spoke immediately, no preamble. "Rodeo rider, we've received your report. We want to hear from you directly." I shared my screen, 41 pages of forensic data, arranged by Harper into a presentation as clean and sharp as a blade. "Page 1, I said, in slow Texas cadence. "Real versus fake invoice structure, font anomalies, metadata edits." I moved to page 2. Page 2, vendor registered in Delaware, Shell LLC, no operating business. Page 3, matching e-signatures from Logan Harper and Savannah Brooks. I spoke for 19 minutes straight. No wasted words, no missing facts. I detailed the planned 42% workforce reduction ahead of the sale. I presented proof of the asset transfer for the Brooks Legacy Collection into a private LLC for tax shielding. And finally, I delivered the line Harper told me to save for last. This whistleblower is risking her career to protect the company. 3 seconds of silence followed. Then I continued. "But I'm not doing this for free. I request 3 things." I flipped to the final slide. White background, black text. Immediate termination of Savannah Brooks. Cancellation of the Swedish acquisition deal. Creation of a new role. Chief Brand Protector, reporting directly to the board, with 18% equity stake. I stopped speaking. On Zoom, 6 faces glowed under screen light. No one clicked, no one coughed, no one moved. Only the soft hum of air conditioners. 8 seconds of silence. Then the chairperson spoke. "Let's vote." One by one, the squares lit up. Yes, 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 no. The final tally, 5-1. Mission complete. The chair looked into the camera. "Rodeo rider, your proposal is approved. Protecting your identity is our top priority." I nodded, switching off my camera before I could even exhale. 4:27 a.m. I had just changed the power structure of a global corporation, and no one knew who I was. The next morning, the sky over Los Angeles was so clear, it felt almost unreal. Early sunlight gleaming off every glass pane along Rodeo Drive like flat mirrors. I stood in my 3rd-floor office, looking down at the slowly thickening traffic, a hot coffee cup in my hand. Harper texted, "You'll want to stay where you are. This one's worth watching." At exactly 10 a.m., the glass doors on the ground floor slid open. 4 security officers walked in. Black uniforms, earpieces, their posture perfectly straight, like men who'd carried out orders without showing emotion more times than they could count. One of them held a white envelope with a red board seal. I didn't take my eyes off the lobby. Just seconds later, Savannah emerged from around the front desk corner. Pristine white dress, platinum blonde waves, cream Goyard bag in hand. She knew nothing, still smiling, still chatting about a new shipment from Milan, still exuding that soft, curated elegance. Then one of the guards stepped forward. "Ms. Brooks, please come with us." Savannah paused like she'd misheard. "Sorry? I have a 10:15 meeting with—" "This is an urgent directive from the board of directors." His tone wasn't loud or aggressive, just level, as if stating something obvious. Savannah let out a faint laugh. "There must be a mistake. I'm the CCO and a 22% shareholder. No one has the authority." The guard handed her the envelope. Savannah opened it. The lobby lights reflected off the white paper, and I saw her expression shift from composed to a cold, pale gray in under 3 seconds. Her hand, holding the envelope, trembled slightly. I don't understand," she said, voice cracking. "Who signed this?" "The board," the guard replied. This morning's vote. The entire ground floor went still. Employees were scattered on either side, like spectators too afraid to breathe. Then a small beep. Someone recording on TikTok. Then another. Then two more. All in the span of a few heartbeats. Savannah began to unravel. I'm a shareholder. You can't touch me. I have rights. The lead officer stood tall, his voice firm and final. The board has passed a resolution. You no longer hold authority here. Please surrender your ID card and vacate the building immediately. Savannah stood frozen, like someone whose oxygen had just been cut. She looked around, searching for an anchor in someone's gaze, but everyone looked away. Not out of hatred, but because they all understood this wasn't personal anymore. It was about numbers. It was about truth. She handed over her badge. Her hand trembled. The guard swiped it through a deactivation device. A beep. Dry, sterile, emotionless. Yet it sounded like a verdict. Savannah looked around one last time and screamed, her voice high and sharp. This is ridiculous! I'll sue! The glass doors opened. 4 guards escorted her straight out, their steps quick and steady, as if fearing she might cling to a pillar, just to salvage the last shred of power. I stood on the 3rd floor, fingers tightening around my coffee cup, watching through the transparent glass. Not with joy, not with vengeance, but with a deep, quiet understanding. Today, the power in this company changed hands, and the one being forced out wasn't me. After the glass doors closed behind Savannah, the Rodeo Drive lobby fell into a silence unlike any other. Not shock, not confusion, but the kind of silence that settles when people know things will never go back to how they were. I stayed at the window a few seconds longer, then turned, tossed my coffee cup into the trash, and headed for the elevator. Harper had messaged on iMessage, "Board sending the docs." Head down to sign. When the elevator opened onto the lobby floor, employees turned to look, not in suspicion, but with the eyes of people who had just witnessed a storm sweep through and were still trying to make sense of what had passed. I kept my expression neutral, walking straight past them, the silver heels of my cowboy boots echoing against the polished stone floor. A corporate legal assistant from New York was already waiting. She wore thin glasses and carried 2 thick folders, neatly tucked inside a black leather case. "Ms. Harper," she said, with a tone both formal and slightly wary, "the board asks you to sign the interim appointment and the brand authority agreement. Also, we have a temporary nameplate for you." I took the folder. The first page read, in bold, "Appointment Resolution, Chief Brand Protector." Just below that, a smaller line, 18% voting shares. Reports directly to the board. I took a very slow breath, not out of emotion, but because it felt like I was signing into a chapter of my life I hadn't even dared to imagine days ago. I signed. Each stroke of the pen felt like opening a door that someone had tried to lock in my face for years. When I handed the folder back, the assistant placed a polished metal nameplate on the desk. I looked up. Ashley Harper, Chief Brand Protector. In that moment, the glass-lined lobby of Rodeo Drive fell into another kind of silence. Staff stood here and there, some covering their mouths, some exhaling softly, but no one spoke. They just looked, not because they knew the full story, but because they had just witnessed something they never expected. Someone who once seemed small within this company was now the one holding ultimate brand authority. I lifted the nameplate to my white denim shirt, pinned it carefully. It was heavier than I expected, but it fit perfectly. Right then, my phone buzzed. "Logan, please stop!" A short, weak message, like the last attempt from a man who had just realized everything he built was starting to fall. I looked at the message for exactly 3 seconds. No anger, no hurt, no satisfaction. Just the clear awareness that Logan finally understood what was happening, but far too late to save any of it. I typed one reply, one line, the one Harper told me to save for the perfect moment. "Your $38 million campaign just got canceled. I'm busy flying to Stockholm." I hit send. The blue glow of the screen reflected off the new nameplate on my chest, a mark no one could ever take from me. Just as I adjusted my nameplate, my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Logan or Donna, but Harper. The message was only 3 words. It's starting now. I hadn't even asked what she meant when emails began flooding my inbox like a broken dam. The first subject line, IRS, Audit Notice for Harper Media Corporation. I opened it. It was an emergency audit order for the entire 3-year financial record. 3 years full of fake invoices, suspicious transfers, and all those campaign optimization charges Logan had always dismissed as internal agency matters. I exhaled slowly, not because I was glad, but because the truth had finally landed exactly where it needed to. Less than 20 minutes later, Harper FaceTimed me from Dallas, her hair thrown into a quick bun, audit headset still on. IRS found edited metadata in a 2023 invoice, she said. I didn't touch anything. They found it on their own. So basically, 80% of the job is already done. I looked at her on screen. And Logan? Harper tilted her head. You should sit down or stand. Just don't be holding hot liquids. And then, just as she finished, the second email arrived. Termination of contract. Priority account number 12. The biggest client. A furniture company in Ohio that had used Harper Media for 6 years. Then a third email. Contract suspended. The second biggest client. The home appliance brand Logan had always proudly called the backbone of the fiscal year. 2 contracts vanished in under 48 hours, and for a mid-size agency like Harper Media, that wasn't a stumble. It was a freefall into an abyss. Harper shrugged when she saw the stunned look on my face. You don't have to do anything. They're walking away on their own. No one wants to be associated with a company flagged by the IRS. She emphasized those last words. Flagged by the IRS is the kiss of death. I looked down at the street, where sunlight reflected off luxury cars gliding along Rodeo Drive. Logan used to say he loved the feeling of control, of driving that Lexus LX 570 as a symbol of success. A new alert appeared, this time from Find My. Lexus LX 570, removed from account. I didn't need an explanation. Logan had to sell it. Then a voicemail from Donna arrived. Ash, what did you say to him? Logan shut down Harper Media. He's packing to move back to his mother's. You just destroyed his life. I didn't reply. I simply sat down, stared out the window, listened to the steady hum of the air conditioning, and thought about something I never imagined I would. Logan's downfall wasn't caused by me. It was simply the natural consequence of choices he'd hidden for 3 years. And now, with all the facades stripped away, Logan Harper was no longer a visionary CEO, no longer a campaign leader, no longer the man who had it all. He was left with only one identity, the man moving back in with his mother in Orange County. I was still looking down at Rodeo Drive when a LinkedIn notification flashed on my phone, a platform I used to ignore, but this morning it felt like my own private news feed. The text beneath the sender's name read, Savannah Brooks updated her profile. I opened it. Her new profile picture, a black and white, slightly blurry shot, clearly taken hastily against an office wall. But it was the headline underneath that made me smirk ever so slightly. Exploring new opportunities. No company, no title, no project, no gratitude. Just 4 words, cold, weightless, and falling, with a small note below. No mutual connections currently work with this user. Savannah, the woman who once glided through boardrooms like a queen of interiors, who Vogue once dubbed the Martha Stewart of luxury home decor, who entered offices with a white Goyard and the soft scent of Atlanta's finest perfumes, had disappeared from the entire professional network in less than 24 hours. A clean, deep fall, like someone had slammed a steel door shut behind her. Before I could even look away from the screen, an internal email from the board popped up. The subject line so simple, it made my hand freeze. Temporary voting power assignment. Effective immediately. I opened it. The directive was marked high priority, with digital signatures from all 6 board members. To ensure brand stability during crisis, the board hereby grants Ashley Harper temporary majority voting power for a period of 24 months. I read it once. Then again, majority voting power, not a decorative role, not a vague title, not a symbolic gift to a whistleblower, but full authority over brand direction. The heaviest vote on all major decisions, the very power once held by the founding shareholder group, where Savannah used to stand. Harper texted me in that instant, as if she'd been waiting for my reaction. Told you, you were never standing alone. I set my phone down and breathed in slowly, the glass in front of me, somehow feeling like it expanded by a few meters. Not because I was happy, not because I was smug, but because, for the first time in years, I was witnessing a new power structure being built, from the very pieces they once tried to use to crush me. I stepped toward the glass, looking down at Rodeo Drive as it woke to a busy Tuesday. Sunlight poured onto the rooftops like steel. Cars slid by like veins in a city that never rests. Savannah had fallen out of the industry. Logan had fallen out of relevance. And I, the woman they once called sweet and easy to manage, had just been handed a level of power they never imagined I'd touch. I placed my hand on the new nameplate on my chest. Chief Brand Protector. And beneath it was something no one could see. Majority voting power. All of it, everything, had unfolded in under 48 hours. And as I turned from the glass and walked deeper into my office, I knew my life was about to begin. And this time, no one else would decide it for me. 10 months since Savannah was escorted out of Rodeo Drive, my life felt like a building whose old foundation had been demolished and rebuilt with new steel, bright, solid, and clean. Bunny Furniture was no longer a corporation haunted by internal wars. I stood in their large conference hall in month 6, watching 600 employees vote, almost unanimously, to convert the entire model into an ESOP, where each person became a true shareholder. When the resolution was signed, some cried, some hugged. Some looked at me as if I had pulled them out of a storm they never thought would stop. The company's value rose by 160% in under a year. Not by magic, but by transparency, by truth, by everyone knowing they were working for themselves. As for me, I chose a different path. A small glass house in West Hollywood, white wood floors, black and white art on the walls, skylight flooding in from above. I named the new showroom Harper House. No public opening, no massive campaign, no showy grand launch. Harper House welcomed only women, CEOs, actresses, producers, those who knew what it felt like to be underestimated, dismissed, doubted, and still built empires with their hands and their stories. On the official launch day of Harper House, Forbes Women sent me an email. We'd like to do a cover story. They interviewed me for 8 hours, then chose a photo of me standing before the glass entrance of Harper House, white blazer, hands in pockets, hair tied low. The cover line made me reread it more than once. The woman who turned betrayal into empire. I won't deny it. Something about those words hit exactly where I'd once hurt most. Maybe because empires aren't always built from flawless bricks. Sometimes they're forged from the very shards others throw at you. One windless afternoon, I drove the pearl-white Cadillac Escalade Phi down Rodeo Drive and stopped at the parking lot where it all began. Sunlight streamed down onto the same old concrete where Logan's Lexus once trembled in the dark, like a farewell I never asked for. I stepped into the exact spot. A new sign now hung on the white column, rimmed in soft gold, each word etched clean and clear. Reserved for Ashley Harper, majority owner. I stood still for a few seconds, not to dwell in nostalgia, but to feel the perfect symmetry of a circle finally closed. No anger, no regret, no wish to rewrite the past. Just the quiet of someone who had returned to exactly where she belonged. not beside someone else, but at the center of her own life. I pulled out my phone and held it at the same angle as that night. The view where dim light once spilled over a car window, where I had seen Logan and Savannah in Betrayal's blurry silhouette. This time, there was no Lexus, no fogged-up glass, no quickened breath, only me, and the golden sign behind. I took a selfie and sent it to Harper Quinn. The message with the photo had only one line: "From forgotten phone to owning the whole damn street." Harper replied in 3 seconds. "You did it!" And I smiled. Not a teary smile, not one haunted by memory, but a smile filled only with the present, open wide like the road ahead. I walked toward the pearl-white Cadillac Escalade V, parked beneath the soft California afternoon sun, the car's surface catching hues of amber and gold from the West Hollywood sunset. I opened the door, climbed into the driver's seat, my hand brushing across the steering wheel like a quiet ritual before every new beginning. As I started the engine, the sound system lit up, and the upbeat pulse of California Love burst to life, not as background music, but as a declaration. I was driving my life forward, fully at the wheel. I cruised slowly down Rodeo Drive. The street where I once stood, frozen among designer windows, was now just a fading memory in the rearview mirror. The buildings, the glass facades, the lights, no longer witnesses to my pain, but the backdrop to my return. As the Escalade V rolled down a gentle slope toward the main boulevard, I heard my own voice, calm, low, unshaken, as if speaking to every woman who'd ever stood alone in the dark. "They thought they were having a quickie in a parking lot. I ended up buying the entire zip code." The car turned left, the last light of day streaming through the windshield, bathing everything in a warm gold. I drove toward the open road, where early evening breeze rustled through rows of towering palms. The screen slowly faded to black. Then words appeared, stark white, deliberate, like a quiet but definitive closing line to the journey. "She didn't get mad. She got the deed." A brief silence followed, not to emphasize triumph, but to give the audience time to breathe alongside the story. Then my voice returned, softer now, warmer, like a woman standing beside you, placing a gentle hand on yours and whispering, "Thank you for listening. If this story made you a little stronger, please like, subscribe, and share it with another woman who needs to be reminded. She deserves more."